are you?
Good afternoon.
Good. So I want to use you two as a case study because I think you have a particularly kind of creative and innovative partnership. Frida, maybe first, can you just speak a little bit about why Gucci supports film so much, why it's important to the house and to you?
Well, Gucci and the partnership and the interest of Gucci with the cinema and with this community dates back in the 40s and the 50s when famous actors and actresses they were also working to Cinecittà, and so they were approaching that brand in those years. And then of course the second store of Gucci in Los Angeles was opened in the 68. So there is a very long how can I say relationship between the two stories. But of course, then I had a very personal interest, and I wanted to cultivate even more this kind of theme, because I think it's part of DNA values of the brand. So I really wanted to invest part of my job, my creativity in collaboration, like for example the one with Martin Scorsese for the Film Foundation, where we are restoring almost 10 films now. And then of course,
I think for the audience, you've been restoring films with his organization. I think you've supported them to the tune of $2 million.
Yeah, it's a long partnership, it's an ongoing partnership. So we are working with Martin since 2006 now, and it's a very successful one. And now we are just restoring the last film from Luchino Visconti. It's the third one. Actually, we are premiering this in Cannes in 2015. And this is always a way to create a connection, to create a dialogue between these two different worlds, because of course we are watching each other, we're always looking together for something special. And so when it came the idea of having this kind of collaboration with Michael and with the LACMA, I thought it was genial, because of course I love the idea of Michael, the vision of Michael, of putting together the fine arts and the films industry, and together also the fashion.
So let's show the video. What LACMA and Gucci do together is an annual gala that celebrates each year one fine artist and one filmmaker. So there's a 1-minute clip of kind of the highlights of the past few years of the collaboration.
We're here tonight to celebrate the extraordinary bodies of work.
Good to be first, I guess.
I'm very excited to see all of you here tonight to honor Clint Eastwood and John Baldessari.
Please welcome the daring David Hockney.
My mentor, my friend, and the greatest filmmaker of our time, Mr. Martin Scorsese.
Everyone knows LA is the city of film, and increasingly it's the city of art. And these worlds don't always mingle, but here they do.
Well, for me, film is art.
The super chic, the best, Sting.
J.G. Ballard said, Ed Ruscha has the coolest gaze in American art.
I'm really honored to be acknowledged tonight.
It means a lot to me to be honored tonight here at LACMA. In the 70s, we spent so many hours here watching films.
It's the only encyclopedic museum in Southern California.
There's more history in film right here in this town, and it really deserves a sensational museum.
Thanks. So can you talk to me a little bit, Michael? I guess first just this sort of how this gala originated, how this...
Galas, everybody has a gala.
Everyone has a gala.
Money, and I'm not a big fan of galas in many ways. And in 2008, when the financial crisis hit, we had to cut our budgets like every institution. And one of the least performing departments was our film department in Los Angeles.
Which is surprising in Los Angeles.
So I figured we'll just start from scratch. Everybody was furious. Marty Scorsese had his picture like this big on the front page of the LA Times.
Wait, because you cut your film program
to rebuild it, and people were skeptical, and he was sort of drawn into it. He hadn't actually been there since the 70s, but he was, and he actually, so he wrote this letter. I went to see him.
He took out basically a full-page ad in the LA Times
lambasting
you.
No, they gave him full page. I am disturbed. He said he's putting on his epitaph. It's going to be his epitaph.
I am disturbed.
So I went to see Marty, and we talked about rebuilding the film program in Los Angeles. Why shouldn't we have the best film program instead of the smallest film program? And after that kind of crisis, everybody's willing to talk to you in a way they weren't before then, the studios and everybody else. And then there was this other thing.
Because everyone was mad at you.
Because everyone was mad. You're on the front page, they'll talk to you. They're mad at you.
Okay.
And the amazing thing about Los Angeles is I had gotten there, and Los Angeles has this incredible art world now. So many artists, so many creative people, designers, and then there's the film world, but they didn't mix. And so the question was, as a backdrop to rebuilding the film program and the relationship to film and art, you need a fundraiser. Maybe you make the fundraiser a civic enterprise. Maybe you use it to really bring the worlds together and see that aspect of it. And that was Ava Chow, who was one of our trustees, who was in the video and said, well, Frida is the person, because she really gets the whole film, art, fashion. Been working with Marty for a long time. We met in New York, I think, first, talked about it, and kind of birthed this event, Art and Film, that has had a much greater purpose than raising money. It's brought these two worlds in Los Angeles together, and I think from the audiences that we bring, people had never met each other before, even though they live in the same creative
That's
city.
what's so fascinating to me, and it's so fascinating to me that in LA in particular, I mean, why in a city of film was film the thing that was underfunded?
Film was business, and then there's art. And obviously film has enough history now, and it is art, and that was the idea to bring that together, which has had incredible results. Not only has the event brought people together, we rebuilt our film programs to some of the best in museums. We have a collaboration with the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. They're establishing the largest film museum in the world right next door to us in a LACMA building, which will be their own museum. So we've gone from zero to what's going to be, when you go to Los Angeles now to the main museum, you will see the art museum and the film museum next to each other. It will be art and film, and the back and forth between those two communities, I think, is very rich.
And why was it sort of fashion that, I mean, aside from the actual funding, that made this work?
I think it was Gucci in particular, and the interest in.
I think for us was a huge opportunity to, to build an even stronger bond with those kind of communities. And what I really like about this initiative is that you can really create, it's such a unique group of culture, artists. So it was a great opportunity for us. It's not only, to wear and to dress celebrities under a carpet. It was not our intention. And first, most importantly, is not that we wanted to have this event in just one spot. So it's a really ongoing participation. It's something that is, we are established together since year after year. Now in 4 years, we also accomplished also real things, like we raised over $14 million, which I think is a great achievement.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I think art and film was the idea, but of course filmmakers are artists, artists make films, there are fashion is a big part of it, design, architecture, music, so it was a kind of a frame. And the idea from the beginning was to have a long-term relationship, because if we built a long-term relationship, we could build community, and that repetition, rather than a sort of sponsor-museum relationship, this became a friendship.
Yeah, because we can work together, we can sit and we can do even better year after year.
Because it's actually a partnership of entities with shared values.
Yeah. And that, I think, makes the difference with other kind of partnership, because it's really authentic, it's something really concrete, and also because we are friends in a way. So we are sitting all around. Eva, of course, Eva Chow is one of the trustees of the LACMA, and she's a personal friend of mine, so we really could share ideas together, of course, with Michael. So we don't feel like just a sponsor.
But I also feel I mean, it's interesting to me, all the different ways in which Gucci supports film, and it's quite quiet. And even at the LACMA event, I mean, obviously you're dressing loads of beautiful celebrities, but it's the branding is very understated. And why is that?
Well, because I've seen that the gala and the evening, in a way, speaks by itself, because For us, it's really important. For me, for example, it's really important to have the chance to meet the people, to have a conversation, to create this sort of very intimate environment, which at the end is it. It's very elegant, it's very chic, so people really feel comfortable. Artists, they feel comfortable. Right. They don't feel that they are under the lights 100%. Right. So we only have a discrete logo on the photo wall for the red carpet, but that's it. So
part of the value for you are the relationships that you're making with these artists, and
it's very important for me because every time is an opportunity to meet someone different. It should be a great idea of someone to for an advertising campaign or just for a collaboration or meet a director or just meet a mythological artist like David Hockney last year. So it's something that is always really inspiring.
So it feels you personally as a creative.
Yeah, because it's not only about actors and actors. It's all the industry together. It's all again is a cross of different things. So it's really rich.
But in a sort of crasser, more bottom line way, what does Gucci get from a collaboration like this? I mean, does it get women into the store? Does it move the bottom line?
I don't know. Maybe it's something that.
Or is it just the creative culture?
We don't have any immediate and specific reaction on this, of course. But after all, we are doing this. We are playing this in Hollywood, and so of course, also for our clients and our customers, is a moment of desire, of dream, because you've seen all these people together, and they know that. Of course, to me as a designer, it's a great opportunity to as I said, to dress. Very important people, but it's not that I think it's the legacy that we built. That now it creates a sort of credibility and something that is reinforcing the values of the brand.
Yeah, I think
so people at the end will understand this. And we created a respect.
It's mutually sort of beneficial in so many ways.
Absolutely, it is.
Has this? Go ahead.
I think a lot of corporate sponsors don't. We get a lot of corporate sponsors. They want the car there or the name really big. I know. I'm just saying.
It's a beautiful car outside.
Beautiful, and it's all great. But what builds real credibility with people like the artists who have incredible influence is credibility. It's the sense that they're interested in the filmmakers and the artists. They create an environment which is absolutely simple. And so if a few less people read that visibly, the people who read it deeply. And the influence, I think, on events like that and the way Gucci's treated this a little bit quieter has been much larger, I think, than and to do it over time, so you're always we're competing with ourselves each year to make it better. I think it's a thing about sponsorships that if they're real, artists feel it. If they're real collaborations, if they're meant to accomplish things and to celebrate art, it works.
I think that's a good point, because artists are, I would think, quite skeptical.
They are.
I mean, the fashion world and the art world collaborating now is pretty common in terms of sponsorships. But if you're really trying to create something authentic, is there any kind of backlash or pushback in collaborating with a fashion house even as esteemed as Gucci?
I think there could be if it wasn't done the way Gucci does it. I mean, if it wasn't done super simply and beautifully, I think there could be. But we probably have more artists, filmmakers and artists in our event than most, and it's a small event. It's the same number of people as in this room.
Right. So tell me, the fact that you two, that this is a sort of sponsorship relationship that really feels like a partnership and based on trust, and it's been going on for several years. Has there anything that's kind of come out of this relationship that's surprising? This idea of kind of anything sort of innovative or surprising or weird that's happened because of? This is a leading question, by the way.
Wow. Okay. I mean, the whole thing was a surprise, because I have to say, LACMA didn't have any credibility in that world when we went to Gucci, and it was a leap of faith. So the whole thing, all of its success, a lot of people had opportunities to get involved, but it was really a leap of faith that now has led to the establishment of so many programs, so many exhibitions under the Art and Film logo, the movie museum, and so it was a real risk, I think, on.
But it's interesting because Martin Scorsese sort of called you out. Frida had an existing relationship with him. Then you honored Scorsese one year. So it all sort of, and you got him involved in this, so you sort of really brought him around.
Yeah, he came out to speak. He was very, by the way, he was super nice. All he wants to do is promote film and its preservation.
Yeah, of course.
So actually, we
course.
worked with him to restore, at the time of the gala, 4 beautiful films that Agnes Varda made in Los Angeles, and that was part of the event when he came to be honored at the gala, but he had previously spoken. And I think it is about raising profiles, raising awareness. That's what he does so well, and I think that it is a.
I thought there was an interesting story, and maybe I'm not supposed to bring this up, but that when you wanted to honor, and I think it speaks to the level of trust between the two of you, but when you wanted to honor Scorsese, he wanted in return for you to give some money to restore some film. And I feel like
that was
all turned that into sort of an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, because his view is very simple. You have to restore as many films as possible, and time is ticking, and they're literally dissolving. Our whole culture. You think about material culture, and you can have Greek vases and paintings. They last a long time. Film is the most powerful and the most fugitive medium. So he's all about that, and then we said, well, we don't really sponsor that, but what we can do is turn it into an art project. So we work with Gucci. We work with Agnes Varda. She did an exhibition. We restored 4 films that were made in Los Angeles, screened the 4 films, and made it into a kind of huge event that everybody loved.
And it's really important, you know, that a person like Martin Scorsese has the influence also to create the awareness and to understand people that films are you know, in danger of deterioration. So that's why our relationship with the Film Foundation of Martin was born in 2006, and that's why we are keep going. You know, is a common friend, is a common, you know, objective for us.
And for both of you, is raising the profile of film as an art form important or relevant?
I think there was a big issue in Los Angeles, like film is business. I even had people on my board who said, look, I don't want to talk about film here. I have film at the office. I want to talk about art.
So they're in the film world. They're giving you money for fine art.
For art, but film is art. And I think that idea of sort of recognizing that history. I mean, speaking of technology, the next thing we're talking about is we need to come up with ways to save the medium of film. This is the first time we've ever seen a medium potentially disappear. Like literally Kodak and all these companies are not going to make film anymore, and if we don't intervene. So it's turning out that the artists and the filmmakers working together, partly because of this initiative, even in the last 4 weeks, are getting together to think about how can we use science and technology to save a medium.
And
so a lot will come of this.
From what I saw, there's not any kind of hierarchy. There is not any kind of snobbish attitude, you know, from one art versus the other one. So they are all very open. They are all very...
Yeah, no, it was interesting hearing John Baldessari say film is art. And what about you as the sort of your legacy as a museum director is part of, what would you like your legacy to be?
I don't know.
I guess that's sort of a big question.
But what Frida's saying, part of the reason is to flatten the hierarchies. You know, one of my trustees, head of the art committee, said at one meeting, Linda Resnick said, when was it that painting got to be more expensive than furniture? Like at a certain time, not long ago, craft was higher valued than painting, fine arts, we call it. And we don't want to know what the future is. Those things are constantly shifting. Art's been around for 35,000 years. Museums have been around for like 150, 200 years as we know them. So if you look at the long view, you have to see all this in flux. And I think the idea of media as art, art and film, the changing definition of what a museum is, it's all in flux. And I think especially at this turn of the millennium, we're seeing this back and forth between media, even fashion and art and film and music. It's a super exciting time to be alive in that sense because I think we don't know what the future is.
When did fashion's profile sort of raise culturally?
Well,
I mean, I feel like fashion was sort of it was a kind of a...
You know, as we were saying before, a fashion designer can find an inspiration everywhere, of course, but most of the time, of course, a great exhibition, a piece of art, or, I don't know, an extraordinary movie, it should be very inspiring. So I think that the important thing is that you have to have your mind, one open, like 360 degrees on this kind of, you need to be very, you know, fertile, and that you have to absorb every kind of information. Then it doesn't mean that you need to do, because I'm working on Visconti, I'm doing a collection on the Visconti movie. It doesn't mean it's something that you absorb and then it comes out. So it's always an enrichment for a designer. It's always a way, to communicate and to know people that are coming from different, communities and cultures. That to me is the most important thing.
It's interesting. In our collections, we have amazing fashion from other centuries, and you realize how much money was put into textiles, fashion, that huge amounts of wealth were in that, and I think they were considered as important as any painting or piece of furniture. And then obviously times change, and in the post-war era, a lot of Italian fashion was designed for an American market and was reborn with cinema, right? In the sense of this living in other worlds, this post-war fantasy, or thinking about politics and fantasy at the same time. And so this intertwined nature of fashion and cinema and art as it exists in our area, we really do live in a media culture. So even the materiality of that fabric is partly intertwined with the mental images that we see in cinema.
Right. And is this flattening of hierarchies that you talk about, is that's something that was brought about by technology, or that's just the times we live in and the reality?
I think museums haven't well enough flattened hierarchies.
Right.
That
So
they're
you
always
think that's
behind.
something that
But artists are flattening hierarchies. I mean, you see
you've
it
heard it
today
from
in
Brendan.
creative people.
Right.
Right. And it's, I mean, what are they're all artificial.
And so I think it's interesting. Can you talk for a minute about the redesign of the museum that you're hoping to do?
So,
or no?
Yeah, well, no, the idea is to rebuild.
Of the flattening of the hierarchy.
Yeah, the idea is in Los Angeles to rebuild a different image that is very flat in terms of the hierarchy of all media. So the Film Museum sits next to the Art Museum, but we have film programs and a huge exhibition program with media and film. We've invested a lot in photography, in design, in fashion, historical fashion. And then the final gesture is to rebuild the entire old museum, 400,000 square feet of buildings from the 60s and 80s, which need repair, with one structure designed by a Swiss architect, Peter Zumthor. We've already built 2 Renzo Piano buildings, but part of that idea is it's horizontal, it's solar, it's all solar, it's efficient, it's transparent. Things museums never are. Efficient, transparent,
so no big staircase.
No big staircase. You can walk through if you're walking your dog through the park, the dog can look through the window and see art. Like that's accessible. And then the horizontality, and I think the mix of media and the programming should be part of that. The building will actually even go over Wilshire Boulevard to engage the boulevard and cars, and you'll be able to see into the museum. But I think that's part of this idea of a changed cultural landscape, which is definitely more interactive, more transparent, and has to respond to a different world. It has to be efficient. It has to be sustainable.
Right.
And I think it has to respond to all media.
Just last question from me, Frida, is I feel like in addition to your supportive film, you have directed Gucci toward supporting women's rights, all kinds of social justice issues. How do you choose sort of who and what to partner with for the house?
Well, it's really important always to find a very serious organization that are partnering with us, because of course we need to, also via technology and social media, we need to reach so many people to create this awareness around the world. So for example, with Chime for Change, we had this partnership with Catapult, so you don't have to send...
This was, so can you just explain quickly Chime for Change, which
you
you
Chime for Change is a program that of course is for women's empowerment, so it covered over 200 projects around the world.
And you raised money through it on a kind of
Kickstarter. It goes straight to the platform that Catapult has built for us. So basically, you can really go on the internet on the site, and you can click. You can make your donation. It can be also $1. You can make a choice on your special project on what you want to follow.
So a certain transparency.
And then you can follow on a daily basis the percentage of the fundraising on that project. So I think it's quite interesting, and for us, it has a big achievement because in less than in 1 year we help to raise for this cause over $40 million.
$14 million?
Yes, so it's a lot. It's a lot in 1 year.
Amazing.
So of course we want to do even more. But again, for example, technology was really helpful for this kind of initiative because of course it's quite easy to reach everyone. And on the other side, of course, it's very important for us, as we did with UNICEF, every time we make collaboration with UNESCO. So it's very important to establish very strong partnership with very serious organization, because when you talk about philanthropy, when you talk about money, of course, you want to have the best partner.
No, I think it's
always.
interesting because technology has clearly created more transparency about the way people can be philanthropically and opened up access to things in quite kind of physical ways. But I think also is changing the way we think about art and culture in ways that we're still just kind of figuring out. And how we view art and the hierarchies and institutions and different medium.
Technology will help tear down our understanding of institutions and those frames. I mean, artists are already working outside the frames of buildings.
Right.
But on the other hand, when my board asked me, well, there's this media world, why are you spending so much money building public sculpture like Urban Light, Chris Burden's 202 street lamps in the front of LACMA? And I said, because you still have to take your Facebook picture from somewhere. Like,
you have created a public art installation is where everyone wants to. It's like the Central Park Bridge of where everyone has their wedding picture taken now.
That's right. Sense of place never goes out.
Yeah,
of
sense of place
style.
is a good thing.
And that's really important.
I think maybe 1 or 2 quick questions from the audience.
Sure.
Or not.
Could you tell us about the Tim Burton's exhibition and how it blends the movie culture with also fashion, and also how to make people involved into art?
The Tim Burton exhibition that we sponsored. So the Museum of Modern Art actually worked with Tim Burton and found a trove of drawings. They had no idea how much he drew, and so that became a full exhibition in a museum, which was groundbreaking in terms of the number of people who went. And we brought that show to LACMA. He was a local artist. He grew up in Burbank. His high school art teacher came to the opening. And that was the start of a whole series of exhibitions that we've done on art and film. And that involved costume design and drawings. And right now we have a German expressionist cinema show that came from a visit Leonardo DiCaprio and I had in Paris of a show there, and brought together artworks, posters. And so that's the idea of the Academy Museum and LACMA being together and being able to create much larger exposure for art and film, and obviously wider audiences. I mean, our event, I think, is designed to target the creative community itself and get them working together, find opportunities so then the broad public benefits from all the energy that that creates and the funding it creates for programs like that.
One more? Well, thank you, and thank you for joining the worlds of art and film and fashion. Okay. Bye. Thanks.